I'm always in the mood for noodles. That slurp is so satisfying. So today we're gonna make 3 Asian noodles that you should try. These silky strands of ruffled noodles are about to get coated in a luscious, spicy chili oil garlic sauce. I'm gonna start by prepping all of our ingredients here. I'm gonna start with our garlic. I'm just giving them a rough mince. I don't want them too big or too small, and all the aromatics should be about the same size. A thumb-sized knob of ginger, mince it up, and half a shallot that I'll also mince about the same size. These are gonna be our aromatics, and it'll bring depth and flavor to our chili oil sauce. And now for the sauce. We have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of black vinegar. This black vinegar right here can be found at the Asian market, and it's just lightly acidic, similar to balsamic vinegar, but a little less sweet. So if you can't find black vinegar, I would just mix a combination of balsamic vinegar and white vinegar to create a similar taste. Now we can add 1 teaspoon of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, and give it a mix. Now let's get our spicy components ready. Here I'm gonna be using a Korean chili flakes called Gochugaru because they're mildly spicy and they give a really beautiful brightness to the oil. But if you can't find it, you can always use regular red chili flakes for the spicy flavor. And for that kick of tingly spiciness in the back of your throat, I'm gonna use half a teaspoon of this Szechuan peppercorn. But we're gonna grind it all up in a pepper grinder. Now to make our chili oil, I have a heavy bottom pot like this that's wide enough to carry the noodles later. I'm pouring a 1/4 cup of avocado oil or any neutral oil that you have into a saucepan, and we'll just heat it up on medium-high until it's hot and shimmery. Now we'll add in our aromatics, our garlic, ginger, and shallots, and we'll just let it cook for about a minute, stirring it often, keeping it moving so it doesn't burn. Add in 1 teaspoon of our Korean chili flakes and our Szechuan peppercorns grounded, and turn off the heat. Now we're gonna add our soy sauce mixture, and be careful doing this because it tends to bubble and steam up quite aggressively, so stand back. Once that bubbling settles, turn the heat back onto medium and let it cook for another minute so that the flavors all meld together. Be careful guys, it has kind of like a delayed reaction when it starts to bubble up like that. But we're not done yet. We have to prepare our noodles. I love using these wide ruffled wheat noodles. I found them at World Market in this package here, and I'll link to them in the description box below since they are available to order online too. And I just cooked them up according to the package's directions, maybe like 30 seconds less so that we don't get mushy noodles. We'll drain them, and while it's still hot, transfer them directly into the chili oil pot to mix and coat our noodles. I've made a version of this chili oil noodles on my channel before, but this one I find has a lot more flavor and depth, so I personally like it a lot better. I like to toss in some green onions as well, just for a pop of color, and then to serve it, I'll add everything to a plate. This makes about 2 servings, and we'll just garnish it with some shredded cucumbers for a nice crunch and some sesame seeds on top. And while these noodles are pretty popular on the internet, this is the spicy chili oil garlic noodles that you should try.
I'm gonna make it more spicy.
A spaghetti carbonara is an Italian classic, but I'm gonna give it a fusion twist with a special Asian ingredient. This recipe is actually from my cookbook. Originally, it was a miso udon carbonara, but today I'm gonna go with good old spaghetti to make it a little more accessible. So carbonara doesn't require any special ingredients. It's simply eggs, pancetta, or in this case, I'm gonna be using bacon, some pecorino romano, black pepper, but to give it that Asian fusionized twist, I'm gonna be adding miso. So in my bowl, I'll add 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of miso. Miso is a fermented soybean paste that gives it a mild saltiness that brings the dish to the next level. It makes it a little different. Half a cup of grated pecorino, or you can substitute it with grated Parmesan cheese if you can't find it, and half a teaspoon of black pepper. We'll just mix it all up and set it aside. So now in our large pan, we're gonna cook up the bacon that I've already cut up, and we'll render out the fat on medium-high heat, letting it crisp up to a nice golden brown, and then we'll add 1 clove of garlic, minced, stirring it for just a minute. Then I'll turn off the heat, set this aside, and we'll cook off our noodles. In some boiling water, I'll add about a teaspoon of salt and cook the pasta just until it's al dente. I'm keeping it slightly undercooked because once we put everything together, I don't want to run the risk of having broken or mushy spaghetti pasta. So now we'll drain the pasta and save half a cup of the pasta water. I'll immediately add the steaming hot pasta into my pan of bacon and garlic and about a quarter cup of the pasta water and then our egg mixture. I'm not going to be using a burner for this process because we don't want to run the risk of scrambling the eggs on heat, and we're just going to be using the steam and the heat from the pasta to cook and finish it off with a tablespoon of butter that I'm going to add to create a silky sauce. Stir everything, keep it moving until you get a luscious creamy sauce that's up to your liking. If you want your sauce a little bit thinner, go ahead and add more of the pasta water and keep stirring until you get that desired consistency. I'll plate it into my bowl and add another pinch of black pepper right on top. This is a fusion comfort noodle dish that really hits the spot. If you want to get more recipes like this, be sure to check out my cookbook, and I'll leave the information in the link below. All right, now we're taking my takeout favorite, the broccoli beef, and turning it into a complete meal in one with the noodle stir fry. We'll start by making our marinade, which will also act as our stir fry sauce later on. So into a bowl, I'll add a quarter cup of soy sauce. I like using low sodium since there's so much of it. And then 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce to give it that extra savoriness. 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of sesame oil, and then 2 teaspoons of rice vinegar to help acidify and balance all of that salty flavor. Then half a teaspoon of black pepper. I also like to add in 3 cloves of garlic minced and 1 tablespoon of grated ginger into the marinade just to get maximum flavor into the meat. So this is our marinade. I'm going to reserve half of it into a cup though for the stir fry later. All right, so now we get to prep our beef. I'm using flat meat here, 3/4 of a pound, and it's the same kind of meat that you use for carne asada. Of course, you can always use sirloin, flank, those are great for stir frying, but use whichever is most accessible to you, or in my case, on sale. When slicing the meat, I like to freeze it for about an hour before using so that it's hard and easier to cut. Flat meat is pretty great though because it's already pretty thin, and when you flash cook it, it's still tender. To cut the meat, I always go against the grain, like perpendicular to this grain right here at a 45-degree angle, and you get these thin little stir-fryable beef slices like this. Okay, now put all of the meat into the marinade bowl and 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. The cornstarch helps to tenderize the meat further and also coat it so that you lock in the flavors when you sear it off later. All right, so now we're just gonna let it hang out for about 15 minutes while we work on our veggies and noodles. Here, it's really simple. I just have half a red onion that I'll cut into thin slices. And then for the broccoli, I'm gonna be using these broccolini, or they're also called baby broccoli. They come in bunches like this, and I find them a lot better in a stir fry than your regular bunch of broccoli because the stem is more tender and you end up using the whole thing instead of like just the florets. But of course, use whatever you have available, and I just cut them into 2-inch pieces and set them aside. Okay, now for our noodles. I'm gonna flash boil these rice noodles. They're often used for pho or Thai noodle stir fries. So I love using rice noodles with my broccoli beef stir fry, but Nate prefers chow mein noodles. So use whichever one you like best, and just be sure to undercook it by like a minute according to the package's directions. Once it's done cooking, just drain and rinse off any excess starch. So we have everything that we've just prepared, our sauce, our meat, our veg, our noodles, and now it's all gonna come together in this stir fry. I'm using my wok for this one, and we're just gonna quickly sear our veggies. I'm gonna add a nice drizzle of oil and let it get shimmery, and then we'll drop in our broccolini and cook it for about a minute before I add in the red onions. You're gonna cook them really quick on really high heat just for another minute until they're lightly charred, and then we're gonna transfer them to a bowl for later. You don't wanna totally cook because they're gonna sit in the heat for a little longer and continue cooking. So I know it seems like a hassle, but we're cooking everything in sequence like this so you get that smokiness, signature wok hei that you typically get at a restaurant stir fry. Now to cook off the meat. I'm gonna add a little more oil and we'll drop the meat in, spread it in a thin single layer, and make sure that you don't touch the meat for a minute to let it crisp up. Once it starts to brown at the bottom a little, give it a quick stir, cook it for another minute before adding in the broccoli, onions, our rice noodles, a 1/4 cup of broth, and our marinade. Mix everything up until you get a beautiful glossy sauce with your noodles. Transfer your beef broccoli noodle stir fry to a bowl. We've got our protein, our veggies, our noodles. What more do you need? A little drizzle of sambal or chili garlic sauce of a different kind. Before I dig in, if you guys need even more noodle ideas, check out my other noodle videos. I'll have them linked in the description box below. Give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Let's try this out. Mmm.